Welcome to Cooking with Glenn and Katie.
Today we are going to be making my mom's famous chicken noodle soup. It's absolutely delicious but very easy to make, and we are actually making it today so that we can take it to the hospice house where she spent a bit of her last days of her life. And our family, of course, was always with Mom while she was sick, so we spent a lot of our time there too, especially Dad. So it's almost like our home away from home now. And now that it's been a couple of years since Mom passed away, we wanted to see how we could give back to the hospice house and the families that are there with their loved ones now. And so this recipe that we're sharing with you, we're gonna make and then take straight on to the hospice house, and we can't wait to share the recipe with you. So now it's time to make my mom's famous chicken noodle soup. Now to get started with that, you're going to need some kind of broth to use. And I want to talk about the broth and the chicken because it is chicken noodle soup. So if you look right down here, you're going to see I have canned chicken or rotisserie chicken. Right here in the back is the rotisserie chicken that I'm using for today. But with this recipe, you can either boil until it turns white chicken breasts. I don't have that displayed because it'd just be raw chicken hanging around. But that's what you could use to make your chicken and then have a broth from that as well. Or you can use your canned chicken. I would say about 2 large cans, which I have here. And don't forget to use the liquid that's in those 2 cans. Or the third option, which I did today, is using the rotisserie chicken that you just saw. Peel off all the meat that you'll want, and then take the carcass or the bone part, put it in a pot such as this, and cover the carcass or the bones with water until it's completely covered. And boil the bones or the carcass. Carcass is a weird word, so I like to say the bones more so, but boil the bones for about 30 minutes to an hour. And then you will not only have the chicken to use that you pulled off of the bones, but then you'll actually have a chicken stock made from the bones, which is great. And that's what we made, my dad and I, and we're gonna be using this today. So there's many different options, whether it's fresh raw chicken that you end up boiling in the water, or the canned chicken, or the rotisserie chicken. So let's get started. So to get started, I have 1 tablespoon of butter in my pan on medium to medium high heat. I'm gonna go ahead and melt that down. As you can see, I'm adding 1 onion chopped. And this was between a medium to large onion. And then after the onion, I'm adding about a cup of chopped celery. This was about 2 stalks of celery that made this. And then I'm gonna add about a cup of chopped carrots. So just make sure to cut up until you get about a cup chopped. And to go with these, finally, I'm gonna stir these up real quick because we're gonna cook these down. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. I'm going to stir these around, and I'm going to cook these together until the onions turn a translucent color, and then we'll be able to keep moving on with the recipe. So I'm going to let these guys cook a little bit, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to skim some of the fat off of the chicken stock. So I boiled this between 30 minutes to an hour, that bones or carcass in water, and this is the chicken stock that it made. And then I refrigerated it. You want to refrigerate it if possible. I just did it overnight and then it's ready to go the next day. But from being refrigerated, there is some fat on top. And so I'm going to go ahead and skim that off. That way we're ready to put the chicken stock into the soup. And as you'll see here, I've actually got 2 quarts. That's what the recipe calls for. And so this is how much chicken broth stock, liquid that you'll want to use for the soup recipe. So here's how you do it. I've got a slotted spoon, and if you see that white on top, that's the fat. So I'm just gonna take my slotted spoon and just scrape it off the top. I'm using a slotted spoon so that all the good chicken stock, chicken broth will stay in there. It doesn't take too many scoops to get it, but you want to get that because you really don't need all that fat in your body anyway. So I'm going to do it to both. But before I put the chicken stock in, let's look at what we've got down here. As you can see, the onions have a more translucent or almost clear type appearance. It might be difficult to see because the celery is also in there, but this is ready to go. So now I'm going to pour in both of the chicken stocks. So I'm just going to take it nice and easy. I'm going to kind of put it this way just in case it leaks out the bottom. Sometimes it does that. So it's good to have a nice wide-mouthed pot to put it in so nothing leaks on your countertop. So there is 1 quart. And now I'm going to go ahead and add the 2nd quart. There we go. This looks absolutely delicious, even as it is a nice broth. So I'm going to go ahead and get the other ingredients and show you what to do with the rest of the recipe. Now that the veggies have been cooked and the chicken stock has been added, it's time to add in the noodles for the chicken noodle soup. And today I'm using a 1.5 cups of this mini farfalle pasta. My mom has used this. It's wonderful. The noodles are small, but they do get a little bit bigger. This is perfect for a bite-sized noodle. But then also, you could use the standard size type as well. Or if you wanted to go even smaller, you could go with a smaller noodle called the piccolini. So as soon as the chicken stock comes to a boil, I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the noodles. So while I'm waiting for the stock to boil before I add in the noodles, I realized I forgot to share something with you. If you don't boil the bones or the carcass to make the chicken stock, or you don't boil the chicken to make the chicken stock, you can actually make your chicken stock either from bouillon or this better than bouillon type of bouillon. Now I have chicken over here, this bouillon, then I have vegetable over here. You could use either. I typically use chicken bouillon, but vegetable bouillon is just as good in this recipe. One last thing I wanted to mention as well was, if you're making this recipe for more people, you can add more than the 2 quarts of the chicken stock, and you can add more noodles. Just be conscious of how much noodles you're adding in comparison with how much more chicken stock you'll be adding. But yeah, these are great ways to make some stock if you don't get it from the bones. I had one more thought in mind. If you didn't want to use bouillon or better than bouillon, you could just buy the chicken stock or the vegetable broth, vegetable stock, chicken broth that comes in the cans like this, you know, that don't even have to be refrigerated until they're opened. And so that's another option as well. Okay, the chicken stock has already come to a boil. So I'm gonna remove the lid. I put that on just to help it out a little bit. Look at that. So now I'm going to go ahead and add in the pasta. I'm gonna stir that in so it can get cooking. So now that I've added the pasta, I've allowed it to return to a boil, and I'm going to allow it to boil for 5 minutes, and then I'll keep moving on with our steps for the chicken noodle soup. Okay, the noodles have been boiling for 5 minutes, and so now it's time for me to add 1 can cream of chicken soup. You can either use Campbell's or the store brand. I had Campbell's today, so that's what I'm gonna go ahead and use. So I'm just gonna take a spoon and spoon it right on in here, being careful not to splash on myself because you don't wanna burn yourself. I'm just gonna go ahead and get all this out and stir it in until it's dissolved. So here we go, I'm gonna go ahead and add in the chicken. And again, try to be careful not to splash up and hurt yourself with any of the hot chicken stock. And I'm just gonna stir this in as well. And then once I let these sit together for a minute, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the burner off and put the lid on and let all the flavors mesh together for 30 minutes.
Well, from the pictures you saw, we had a good time taking the food to the hospice house.
Yes.
It was an emotional experience to go back.
Yes.
But it was good to see the place again and seeing how they're caring for other people and,
Yep.
and seeing your mom's brick that we put there in honor of her.
Yep.
It's just a special time. And I know that folks are going to appreciate the chicken noodle soup that we made for them.
Yeah, because I remember when Mom was in the hospital, Dad was there a lot, and then all of the rest of us were there as well whenever he needed a break. And it was such a blessing to have food that churches and other people brought in, would you say?
Because I didn't have time to make food, and it was just a treat those days that people brought food. It was nourishment for me, and it felt like someone was caring enough about us there to bring a meal in.
Yes, absolutely. So
I'm glad we're doing it.
Me too. And if you guys have a hospice house in your area or another organization that you feel compelled to serve in some way with a meal, we would love for you to comment below and let us know about it. Or we would just love to encourage you to find out what organizations are in your area that you could get plugged in and start taking meals to, or canned goods if you have a Second Harvest food bank or some kind of food bank. There's many different ways to serve people in your community with meals or with types of food, because everybody has to eat. So definitely, if you get involved in an organization or are already involved, please be sure to comment. We would love to hear from you. But even if you don't, we'd still love to hear from you. So be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed watching, and subscribe if you haven't already, being sure to click the notification bell, and we will see you guys with our next video. See ya!
See ya.